for joining us for this look at some of the best stories from KPBS News this week. I'm John Carroll. Coming up, they work for one of San Diego's biggest tourist destinations, but many say they can barely afford to live here. San Diego Zoo workers tell us about their demands for better pay. A new state law allows for involuntary mental health and addiction treatment. See how one local family is navigating the process for their loved one. And volunteers in Baja California share their love for reading. Find out how you can help keep their mobile library on the road. We learned this week that even more foreign students in San Diego have had their visas revoked. One of those students has already been deported. Gustavo Solis spoke with one international student activist who is worried they might be next.
Images of international students being detained by federal immigration agents are spreading fear and anxiety.
I'm pretty afraid of what's happening right now, especially that they're holding immigrants, they're abducting them.
You're hearing the voice of an international student in San Diego. She's involved in the pro-Palestine movement and is terrified that she'll be detained for her activism.
So I'm personally scared whenever I see these images because I don't want to end up like that.
KPBS is withholding her name to protect her from possible retaliation by the U.S. State Department, which has revoked more than 100 student visas in California. Among them were 35 at UC San Diego and 4 at San Diego State University. Secretary of State Marco Rubio initially said the revocations were connected to protests of the high Palestinian casualty count resulting from the Israeli military's response to the 2023 terrorist attack by Hamas.
And we're going to continue to do it. So when we identify lunatics like these, we take away their student visa.
Rubio has accused student protesters of supporting a terrorist organization, but has offered no proof. More recently, Rubio has said that the State Department doesn't need a specific reason to revoke student visas.
When you apply for a student visa, or any visa to enter the United States, we have a right to deny you for virtually any reason.
Last week, the federal government announced that it was monitoring the social media accounts of immigrants to look for signs of what they see as anti-Semitism. That has students, like the person KPBS spoke with, thinking twice about what they post, share, and like.
Should I be thinking about what I'm liking? What is actually anti-Semitic? Like, what are they saying? Like, is this picture or this post about someone losing her child, is this post about this woman losing her child, is it anti-Semitic just because this person is Palestinian? Like, what do they mean by that? Even professors are reaching out to international students to be like, hey, maybe don't post as often as you do. And I think it's valid to be pretty scared at this point.
The student KPBS interviewed says that other international students are now reconsidering coming to the United States.
And I'm seeing a lot of people think it through, like, do I really need to come to the US? People are considering the UK, Canada.
Immigration lawyers are worried about the lack of transparency regarding the revocations. Maria Chavez is with the Partnership for the Advancements of New Americans, or PANA.
What we're seeing right now is just the mass revocation of student visas, but it's growing outside of just the pro-Palestinian movement. It's growing to just students in general. There's really been no rhyme or reason, no answer given as to why their visas were canceled.
She points out that Secretary Rubio is correct. He can revoke visas for multiple reasons. But she says that students should be able to appeal the revocation or find another way to stay in the country.
Visas can be canceled just about for any reason, right? But I believe in due process. And students should have the ability to know why so that they can appeal it if needed.
This is the land of the free.
Activists also see the revocations as an attack on free speech. Chavez says the Trump administration is conflating support for civilians in Gaza with support for Hamas.
You can be pro-Palestinian, you can support the Palestinian community and to not be, being killed and being shelled at and not support Hamas, because those are not one and the same. I don't know, individuals who are pro-Palestine who are pro-Hamas.
She's inspired by students who speak out for what they believe in, despite the current threat.
I think them exercising their right to free speech is incredibly brave. especially continuing to do so under this administration where free speech is very clearly being targeted.
For her part, Chavez says she will keep on fighting to defend their rights. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
Executive pay has skyrocketed at the nonprofit San Diego Zoo in recent years. KPBS investigative reporter Scott Rodd says workers are now pushing for higher pay as they negotiate a new union contract.
The zoo's recently departed CEO, Paul Barabal, saw his compensation more than double in just a few years. The organization's latest financial disclosures show he earned nearly $2 million. Meanwhile, rank-and-file employees who spoke to KPBS say they're struggling just to make ends meet.
They have all the rights to feel angry about this disparity. It's definitely not right.
Rong Zhao is an assistant professor at the Silberman School of Social Work at Hunter College in New York. She studies compensation and working conditions at nonprofits. A single adult in San Diego County has to make about $64,000 annually to support themselves. That's according to MIT's living wage calculator. But the vast majority of unionized positions at the San Diego Zoo make less than that. Some far less. KPBS obtained the most recent contract between the zoo and the workers' union. It shows animal food preparers earn about $36,000 per year. Grounds workers make about $42,000, and zookeepers earn about $57,000.
To be honest, when I look at the wage table, I was so surprised by how low workers were paid.
And those wages have remained fairly stagnant. The union contract shows wages on average increased by less than 2% annually since 2021. Zhao says nonprofits sometimes take advantage of mission-driven employees.
They want to be able to do the work. Many times the only choice that left workers is, I'm going to have to sacrifice.
KPBS spoke to 3 zoo employees who shared their experiences. They asked that we withhold their names, fearing retribution for speaking out. One zookeeper said, quote, "This is a career for me. It's my life's goal. And it's been such a disappointment that they won't pay me a living wage." Another employee said, quote, "We would all starve before we would let any harm happen to these animals. Sometimes it feels like that's taken advantage of by leadership." Barabal, the former CEO, did not respond to multiple requests for comment. The San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance operates the zoo and safari park. The organization declined an interview request, but provided the following statement. Quote, "The Alliance values our employees' dedication to our mission and goals, and we are hopeful to achieve a resolution that supports their contributions while ensuring the long-term success of the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance." The union recently rejected a proposal that would have raised wages on average 25% over the next 4 years. The two sides are now back at the negotiating table. Scott Rodd, KPBS News.
County Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer delivered the annual State of the County speech this week. Much of her message illustrated how the Trump administration is affecting local priorities. Tanya Thorne reports how the county responds will largely be decided by voters.
Crowds packed into the Natural History Museum to hear Lawson-Remer's speech on the state of San Diego County.
Let's talk about progress, about taking one step forward and one step back.
She started her address with the progress the county has seen in recent years, but also talked about how federal cuts are forcing the county to step back.
The federal government is slashing programs we rely on for health care, housing, clean air and water, public safety, and disease prevention. Every decision Washington makes impacts our ability to serve you. And when federal leadership fails, local government must lead.
Then she presented a game plan. To fight federal cuts on health care, Lawson-Remer proposed the creation of San Diego's own Medicaid health care plan. She says funding could come from a local ballot measure.
A local revenue measure could leverage $1 billion a year to support health care and other needs, enough to make sure that struggling San Diegans can see a doctor when they're sick and get treatment for addiction or mental health and avoid financial ruin from medical bills.
She says this measure could also fund law enforcement and services for families and children. Another proposal to use county savings on environmental projects and legal defense programs. And to help the housing crisis,
we're proposing something simple: a small transfer fee on sales of the top 1% of properties in San Diego County, paid only once when these properties change hands. Those with homes in the top 1% can pay for just a small share of that fortunate windfall when their property is sold to help break the stranglehold of our housing crisis.
She says this transfer fee could be used to house first responders, teachers, and first-time home buyers. Her message was one of local support as federal changes continue to rock San Diego and the nation. Whether Lawson Raymer's ideas will be used could depend on the outcome of the special election in July. Right now, the board is made up of 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. The July election will determine whether Chula Vista Mayor John McCann or Imperial Beach Mayor Paloma Aguirre fill the empty District 1 seat. McCann is a Republican and Aguirre a Democrat. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
A new state law is giving families hope when a loved one refuses treatment for mental illness or addiction. Senate Bill 43 expands who can be placed on an involuntary psychiatric hold. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says it will take a while to see the law's impact.
Dear Mom, thank you for choosing to be my mom and raising me, and for still helping me in the ways that you do now that I am an adult.
For Julia Holiday, this letter from her daughter is a reminder of who she used to be before the meth addiction, before the countless psychiatric hospital stays.
I have been challenged by my loved one, my daughter, for 20 years. She was diagnosed at 16 with bipolar disorder, with auditory complications.
Julia and her husband Kirk are among many families dealing with what's known as dual diagnosis, when someone struggles with both a mental illness and substance use disorder. They've tried drug treatment programs, conservatorships, and extended hospital stays. But their daughter leaves after just a few days against medical advice.
Turn 18, things change fast, and you don't even realize the significance of that until you're faced with trying to get information, trying to help.
The older she gets, the tougher it is to intervene.
The most challenging part for me is grappling with the idea that she's beyond hope.
Their daughter is now 36. Julia says she just got evicted from her apartment and is living in a motel. That's where Senate Bill 43 comes in. The law updates California's definition of grave disability to include people with severe substance use disorder. Julia read about it in the newspaper.
I was so excited. I said, oh, this could be actually it, right?
She asked her daughter's psychiatrist about it.
And they were kind of a wait and see attitude. Let's see how it goes. Let's see how it navigates through the system.
The county has had a year to prepare for the implementation of the new law. Dr. Luke Bergman says they've trained hospital staff, first responders, and peace officers how to apply it. They also partnered with the National Alliance on Mental Illness to raise awareness about who it's meant to help.
I would say that implementation has gone pretty well, primarily in that we haven't seen huge numbers of people detained and transported for care under the terms that SB 43 establishes.
The county is expected to release the first numbers in June on how many people have been detained under SB 43. But for the Holidays, whose daughter was just in the hospital again a few weeks ago, the new law hasn't changed much for them yet.
It was never mentioned once in the 5 or 6 weeks my daughter was in the hospital. Maybe there could be some more advocacy on it, or maybe outreach to families and say, hey, we're going to have an orientation about this.
At Sharp Grossmont Behavioral Health, lead social worker Candy Elson helps families navigate these difficult decisions.
It's very difficult to help them stay in the hospital for a long period of treatment if they don't want to be there. So I spend a lot of time explaining to families the nature of the mental health law in California, the limitation of resources.
She says SB 43 is well-intentioned, but hard for families to navigate.
And I sometimes say it's like false hope, because if your family member still says, I'm not going to get treatment, nothing's going to happen.
Involuntary treatment is possible, but it requires intervention by the court. Still, the Holidays hope that the next time their daughter finds herself in crisis, the new law can help her.
Well, I just hope that people who have family members, friends, or other people in their lives who suffer from mental illness and dual diagnosis don't abandon those people.
Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Heidi DeMarco is our dedicated health reporter here at KPBS. All of her work is available at kpbs.org. Recent stories include a state effort to ease medical debt and how federal budget cuts are bringing an end to a local wastewater testing program. San Diego's library budget was more than $70 million in 2022, and access for our rural communities was still challenging. Now imagine serving your community without that money. KPBS video journalist Matthew Bowler introduces us to a group doing just that in Rosarito Beach in Baja California.
Two little boys sit reading on a park bench, engrossed in their new books. Mom sits close.
Les gustan normalmente los que son de sagas, por ejemplo, Hombre Perro, que son varios libros. Están los tipos malos, Nate the Great, y también Capitán Calzoncillos.
That's Gabi Pulido, a mother of two sons who love to read. She brings her boys to the bookmobile whenever she can. Pulido loves to see her children grow through reading.
Y con los libros, sí, los libros, en el caso de ellos, les ha permitido mucho su creatividad.
In a vacant lot behind a grocery store in Rosarito, Mexico, this bookmobile aims to reach community members with little or no access to public libraries.
Unfortunately, because there's so many other priorities, the libraries are left at the bottom of the budget.
Carmen Dominguez is president of the Rosarito Beach Friends of the Library. She says they are a small, determined group fighting to bring books to their neighbors.
We're scrappy. We are, we stand up and in front of all the challenges. And believe me, we've had some, and we constantly have some.
Mexico has been standing up to many challenges, literacy being one. According to the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, Mexico has increased literacy rates to over 95%. For some perspective, the National Literacy Institute out of Houston says adults in the United States have a literacy rate close to 80%. Los Amigos de la Biblioteca de Playas de Rosarito, or Friends of the Rosarito Beach Library, has only one old bookmobile. They keep it at the Centro Estatal de las Artes de Playas de Rosarito, or CEART. Every 2 weeks, volunteers drive it out to a neighborhood in need. And they set up to loan out books, read books, and serve their community. These days, they are worried about their old Biblioteca Móvil. Friends of the Library Rosarito have been around since 2006, and now they need to fundraise to replace their little blue bus. But new bookmobile or not, this scrappy group will keep serving their community. Matthew Bowler, KPBS News.
If you would like to donate or buy some books, go to friendsofthelibrary.com.mx. Sign up for KPBS newsletters to get a list of our most popular stories. Here are some from this week. The recent immigration raid in El Cajon shows a stark change in enforcement priorities under President Trump. A California bill aims to ease medical debt by requiring hospitals to screen patients for financial aid. And video shows elephants at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park forming an alert circle during Monday's earthquake. Katie Anastas has this explanation from mammal curator Mindy Albright.
Elephants are very in tune to their environment. and picking up environmental cues allows them to make decisions. And they sensed something was off and potentially dangerous. And so immediately they ran together and formed what we call an alert circle. And Micaiah, the youngest, was in the center of that circle. So this is a defense mechanism that elephant herds do to protect the family unit. Ndula and Mgani are 35 years old. And then there's Kosi, she's 18. And then you have the two youngsters, Zuli and Micaiah, who are 7. Elephants also have the ability to feel sound through their feet. And so, they're connected to the earth. They're feeling the sound from the earthquake. They're listening. Their ears are out. Zuli at one point puts his trunk up and he's smelling the air to see if, can I smell where the danger is coming from? Kosi keeps turning her body and touching Zuli with her trunk to just kind of check on him. And what's interesting too is he's outside of the circle and not necessarily in the middle of the 2 adult females like Micaiah is. And Micaiah and him are only a month apart. But as a young male, he will eventually age and grow older and move out of the family unit, where the females stay with their family unit their whole life. For people who live in San Diego, how many people have family members outside of San Diego? And the first thing that they do is they reach out to you and say, are you okay? Is everything okay? And that's sort of what you see the elephants doing in that moment.
Subscribe to the KPBS YouTube page and get notified when new content is posted. It's where we live stream KPBS Evening Edition weekdays at 5 and share stories from our reporters. You can also stream new episodes of KPBS podcasts, including our newest show, The Finest, all about the artists who call San Diego home. Hidden San Diego has been helping the curious and the courageous find interesting places around town for more than 15 years. Jessica Johnson takes KPBS Evening Edition anchor Maya Trabulsi to another hidden Balboa Park location where they end up on a hunt for an elusive spice tree.
It's just one of those things where you wouldn't even realize what it is unless you stop and take the time to pay attention. My name is Jessica Johnson. I run the popular brand Hidden San Diego. Hidden San Diego is your go-to website for all hidden, haunted, and amazing spots in San Diego. That's the official sign. And then it says starts here, well, the 5 flavors walk.
The first sign says you start here for signs 1 through 7, 5 flavors walk. Did you know that the flavor of a plant tells you its healing function?
I'm sure Balboa Park lovers have probably or possibly walked this many times like I had growing up without really realizing what it is. These are a lot of really rare medicinal trees from all over the world, and they have plaques explaining what they are. You can learn about a lot of different things that you probably never realized. So this area right here, this is the bitter flavors.
Okay.
And it's talking about mugwort and coffee bean. The fringe tree bark, which was that.
Taste tells you to use the herb in small amounts, is astringent and tightens tissues, stimulates immune function, production of stomach acids and enzymes, detoxification by the liver and colon. That's bitter.
Although I do think it's funny because they also have poisonous plants like the lantana and the angel trumpet tree, which are definitely, well, maybe they're medicinal, but you don't want to accidentally try them.
One man's medicine is another man's poison?
Right.
How many acres is this?
3.5 acres, over 70 medicinal trees and shrubs. And it's the kind of place that you should keep returning to throughout the year because different things will be fruiting, different things will be blooming.
Do you think this draws a lot of people?
Every time I post about it on social media, it always gets a lot of attention. People are really surprised and excited to learn about it. I don't know if it's one of those places that they just stop by once or kind of save it to their notes to know it exists, but I think it should become more popular. I wonder where the cinnamon tree is. I have seen people from all over the world coming here to appreciate. I came here with some of my friends who are from Afghanistan, and they were so excited to see the mulberry bush, which they said was from their their hometown. So I like how they're teaching us that food is medicine, because I feel like we've really gotten detached from that. With all the processed foods, everyone's getting so sick all the time, diseases are on the rise, but really, if we go back to the basics of working with the whole food, the whole plant, and realizing that it is medicine, I think we would all be a lot healthier. I'm looking for that cinnamon tree.
Yeah.
I know I've seen it. I would not have written about it otherwise. Oh, here's a pecan tree. And nasturtiums growing below, which make a great pesto. You don't usually see people around here, but you'll hear birds chirping. We have rosemary, cinnamon. There it is. So this to me was one of the more exciting ones, to see a cinnamon tree, because I'd never seen one before. And it's exciting to realize that we can grow that out here, first of all. I like that they educate us on what it's used for historically and medicinally. When you have such a diversity of plants, it's going to attract a diversity of animals. So there could be birds that come here that wouldn't usually come to this area. Those who love hiking have probably come across stinging nettle. It's a really vicious plant. If you touch it, it's got needles, very painful. But if you dissolve it in boiling water, or if you boil it in water, the needles dissolve within seconds, and then it makes a great tea. Really good in soups, very high in minerals. It's medicine. So this is ginkgo biloba, which is the oldest living tree species. It's an ancient tree. And here it is right here. So it's great for improving circulation to the brain, and it helps improve your memory. It's very special to connect with plants. So I always feel really happy when I come here.
Evening Edition anchor Maya Trabulsi with that story. You can find more of Jessica's Hidden San Diego and California sites on her webpage, hiddensandiego.com. We hope you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm John Carroll. Thank you for joining us.